Hey, what's up, rabid Razorback family? I hope you're all having a blessed day. And today, I want to talk about some concerns I have with where Arkansas Athletics currently stacks up in terms of NIL funding comparable to other major programs. Because from the outside looking in and without seeing the actual numbers, I've had these concerns that we are not where we need to be in terms of competing with, as I noted, other major programs in this regard. And recently, during an interview with Hit That Line, Coach Van Horn kind of reaffirmed some of those concerns for me, and I'll go ahead and play a little 45-second clip for y'all right now.
You know, there's some that have and some that have some. There's some that have a lot more than others, and could really get separated talent-wise down the road. I mean, we're holding our own right now with recruiting, and we feel like we can coach them and get the best out of them. But when you really start looking at it, if the team's just loaded with NIL money plus scholarships, it can get to the point where it's going to be tough to handle them. So I'm good with it. I wish we had more NIL money. I'll say that. I mean, that's a fact. And we've been smart with it. We're not just slinging it around. We're trying to recruit the right kids and lead them maybe to where they can get some. But, yeah, it's a little difficult.
I mean, y'all heard it right there. I think that was pretty clear cut. I don't want to sit here and over-dramatize Coach's words or our situation. But the reality is, if our best and most consistent program is not receiving the funds necessary to compete with the other big boys, so to speak, then it's unrealistic to assume, regardless who the coach or the staff is, that we'll be able to consistently produce on the same level. Obviously, DVH in particular is still doing a tremendous job in recruiting in spite of whatever disadvantage he may have in that regards, because he just brought in the #1 recruiting class in the country. However, if the ultimate goal is to be winning national championships, and it certainly is in regards to our baseball program right now, then we don't want him to be handicapped in that process. I think when this whole NIL thing started, many fans, like myself included, believed that this was something Arkansas could potentially use to its advantage, with major Fortune 500 companies like Walmart and J.B. Hunt and Murphy Oil and Tyson and others having their headquarters within the state. But once again, at least from the outside looking in, it does not appear that we have done so. And obviously, we can't force these companies to pitch in and help put Arkansas on the pedestal we all hope and believe it should be on. But to expect that deficit in funds to come from the average fan is objectively delusional. If we're going to match the big boy funds of other major programs, then we're going to need our big boys to step up. And hopefully, with some of the recent changes being made to our own NIL program, there is some major strides being made behind the scenes, because if not, our programs, regardless once again who the coach or the staff is, are going to be competing with essentially one hand tied behind their backs. And DVH isn't the first Arkansas coach to hint at this. We heard speculations and rumors after this past football season that one of the biggest things that went into the thought process of retaining or firing Sam Pittman was NIL funding. Whether or not it was more advantageous to spend the money on Sam Pittman and his staff's buyout and the hiring of a new staff, or was it more advantageous to take that type of money and put it into the NIL fund to build up next season's roster? Now, to what extent that's true or not, I don't know, but I do think there's some validity to it, and I think there's obviously some logic to it. And then Coach Pittman would go to say later on in some press conferences that he believed he was going to receive more help in that regard. But what does that help look like, once again, comparable to other major programs? Regardless, your personal thoughts on NIL or on Sam Pittman or on any particular coach within our athletic program, once again, the reality is if they are recruiting with one hand tied behind their backs, then it's going to be difficult for them to recruit on the same level as the big boys, and therefore it's going to be difficult for them to produce on the same level as the big boys. And I guess all this really amounts to right now is a rant, because there's not much that I personally or that most of you can do personally as the average fan to substantially change our NIL funding. But nonetheless, I felt like voicing some of my thoughts on the subject and bringing to light how big a factor it is in the current and future success of all our athletic programs. Hopefully, the NCAA will pull its negligent and/or incompetent hand out of the sand and make some very necessary changes to the current structure of NIL as well. However, I certainly won't be holding my breath on that. But until then, it's pretty much adapt or die. And I will quickly say that I don't believe Arkansas is anywhere near the bottom in this regard. I'm sure they're somewhere in the top 50 at the very least. But I have also heard from some parents of some players, and I take everyone's comments with a grain of salt without seeing the actual facts and numbers. But I have heard from some parents that the offers we've made to them in terms of NIL have been notably less despite being able to land some of those players. And I reckon that's really the end of my thought/rant, but I'd certainly love to hear some of y'all's thoughts as well. And maybe and hopefully we will see some things that visibly prove we are making the necessary changes and moves in terms of our NIL program going forward. But that's all for now. Thank y'all as always for all y'all's love and support. Thank y'all for y'all's time. And until next time, I pray the good Lord keeps you all safe and blessed. And of course, go Hogs!